A year ago, this wasn't even on anyone's radar. And now, again, as a brand and your clients, you've got to get tablets on the radar screen because now you've got some huge issues. And this graph actually shows what issues you're up against. So this was first 3 quarters of cumulative shipments from launch, right? And we're looking at the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad. So first 3 quarters when the original iPod was launched, and you've got this green bar here, which doesn't look like a lot, although at that time it was pretty big. First 3 quarters after the iPhone was launched, this is the cumulative number of shipments. First 3 quarters after the iPad was launched, cumulative shipments, right? So iPad just as one example in terms of just massive, huge, explosive growth and number of consumers buying into these devices. So now, from a media perspective, consumption perspective, you've got to think about, well, you know, how are people interacting with websites? How are they interacting with apps? How they're interacting with other media on tablets? How are they using that? And they're, you know, in addition to using this, and even using these guys to a degree. So tablets now is something you have to think about. And it's not just the iPad. So again, we talked about iPad, but we've got the same game playing out with Android. So this is some projection through 2012, so 10, 11, 12. So you got Apple, Android. So where you had, okay, so this is Android, right? So very low numbers in 2010, starting to eat into Apple or compete with them in 2011. Expectation 2012, roughly same number of iPad devices being sold as Android devices. So again, you got that issue to deal with. So Motorola Xoom probably being the best of the new Android tablets that you can get, a little more expensive than the iPad, nice user experience, some new functionality and so forth. We're just going to see this competition just continue to ramp up. I think there was something like 600 new tablets announced at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas back in January. Like 600 new products that you're going to be able to buy over the next year from different manufacturers, everyone from LG to Samsung to Motorola and everyone in between. All those guys are developing more or less for that platform. Whereas obviously the iPad 2 is now out, obviously the Apple platform. And then you've got Microsoft and others. So you've got some other players in there. But again, it's the same Apple versus Google scenario playing out again. But it even gets a little more subtle in terms of what are your consumers using, but what are the consumers using at what time of day? And I like this graphic because this came from ComScore. ComScore is another one. ComScore is actually a very good resource for mobile information traffic platforms, devices, and so forth. They're probably one of my favorite. So this one kind of speaks to, you got computer, smartphone, and iPad, and looking at how the traffic is used during the day. So that if you're trying to target an audience at night, right? Maybe you're sitting home watching TV, you see the iPad use go up, which is kind of what I've seen too. I know people have bought iPads to use at work, but I don't always see them being used in an office. Sometimes they do, but they're being used a lot at home. So, kind of comes together in the beginning here. In the middle of the day, people are more using the computer, kind of maybe what you'd expect, people more at work or sitting at their home office, and they've got a desktop there, a laptop that they're using, right? And the iPad kind of creeping up at night, smartphone more than the desktop computer at night. So the point of this chart is, don't worry about the details so much, but think about that. Think of now multiple devices and think of the context of time of day. That kind of comes into play, which makes it even a little more tricky. And I think that says something about the future of devices and usability and the expectation. So the expectation starting at 2 or 3 years old is going to be, that's how you use this stuff. And maybe to move to a keyboard mouse type environment would be a completely foreign thing in 10 years. That won't exist because that is going to be the new user interface for everything. I don't know, just something to think about. Everything possible in coming years is going to be hooked to the internet and is going to have some type of user interface that interacts, right? So think of your home theater systems now. Every TV you buy can access the internet or home system, right? So you get different interfaces there to think about and different ways to deploy content and deploy platforms. I think it gets super fragmented and very niche. But in terms of the mass major consumer devices, I don't think you have to have another device now in terms of general daily use that everyone kind of uses. I don't think so, but who knows? We'll see. Never thought tablets would take off like they did.